sweet.
You did.
Oh.
We are live. We're here.
Oh no,
Hello,
not yet.
Oh my gosh. Don't.
Yo.
Don't. I'm too new to streaming for you to make it seem like anything's wrong. Hello, everybody. We are back. I'm so excited. If you are just joining us, my name is Lana Pashinsky. I'm a senior animator here at Riot Games, and I'm going to be your MC for the day here with the rat. But more importantly, right now, we are about to get tactical, shooting the we don't know if we're allowed to swear with the Valorant team.
The stuff.
Shooting with Valorant. Anyway, I'm done. I'm done talking for this section, and I'm going to pass it off to the incredible David Gibson. Take it away.
I don't know about that. Hello, everybody. There's two of us right now. There are two of me.
Oh, God.
I got to get one of those. My kids, boy, they would love that. Let me see here. So my name is David Gibson. I'm the lead animator for the Valorant team. I don't do anything. Everyone else that you see here does stuff. So
Don't lie.
Yeah. Real quick here, I'm going to go around and just introduce everyone because I'm looking on the stream and there's no names or anything, and Lana disappeared. Oh, I see some names. What I'm going to do is I will start. Let's start with the lower right of your screen, Mr. Lorenzo. Oh God, I hope I get this right. Coliori.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I woke up in a cold sweat last night. I was like, how do I say this? Lorenzo is an animator on the team. We'll get into everyone's background more as full frame. Lorenzo used to do cinematics, and now he's a game developer. And there's a lot of good juicy stuff there to dig into. Oh no, we switched around now on the screen.
I know. I was gonna bigify every single person, but I think it's gonna switch the order every time. So everybody just give a really big wave when it's your face.
All right. Well, all right. My plan is just gone, but they're the same on my screen. So next up with the llama is Paul Mombriquette.
Oh, no, he's gone. Oh, he's got a Canadian flag. There we go.
That's his Canadian flag. Paul's an animator as well on the team, and he has a illustrious and storied career in game development and animation that we will get into. And then next on my screen, we've got the guy with the wig and the visor. That's Adam York. Now,
Jesus.
Adam York is probably best known for animating the bird in the opening of the Spirit tradition. He used to do traditional animation. Paul, did you do traditional animation too?
Not on purpose. No.
Okay.
Not on purpose.
There's a little horse maquette that Adam used to use to make sure that he was on model when drawing Spirit for the movie.
Oh, whoa, that's cool.
Adam and I go way back. We've worked in game development for a while together, and we used to work in films together. And he lives 10 minutes from my house, so we're real close. And next on my screen, we have Billy Lamb. Give him a good wave, Billy. Billy is an animator on the team.
All right. Too many air horns. Too many air horns. Slow it down.
More air horn.
Billy, you were a cinematic animator. This is your first game job, right? As a game dev, or no?
No, I was at Amazon Games for a while.
Oh, that's right. You were at Amazon for a little while, for a hot minute. And before that, you were doing cinematics at Blizzard and a few other places, right? Sony ImageWorks too.
Yeah.
I think we were there at a similar time.
Yeah, I did film for a while.
Yep. And then next up, we'll do Josiah Haworth, who, if you guys were here, where's the horn? Oh, we got a mask. Josiah is an animator on the team. And how long have you been in the industry, Josiah?
I think I said earlier, 6 years, I think.
6 years for Josiah.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, he's worked on such projects as WoW and Overwatch, and now Valorant, and something at Magic Leap.
Yeah, I worked at Magic Leap for
cool.
a year.
Yeah. So you can see already everyone has kind of a different path to get to this point. Now, next up, that's all the animators. Oh, we are missing one animator, Sean McSheehan. And he is the brains behind. Yeah, pour one out for Sean because he just had a baby. And he could not be here today with us because he's dealing with babies stuff. And he is responsible for, what would you guys say, like all of the gun animations in Valorant?
I think
Most
Billy
of
did
them.
some, but
99.9% of them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sure, yeah.
Yep, including like the dragon skin line that we released not too long ago, and that kind of stuff. So, if you have any specific questions about that we can't answer, we'll get in touch with Sean and we'll figure out how to get those answers to you somehow. Next up, so that's all the animators for the animation team. But I asked all of our tech artists to be here because you're not an animator anymore in CG if you don't have a rock solid tech art team. So let's start with Jue. Down, she's in the top right on the stream. Jue's been at Riot. How long have you been at Riot now?
6 years.
6 years. And when you first started, you were on League, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you switched over to Valorant. And we wouldn't have a game if it wasn't for Jue.
Dave,
So-
explain to the chat what tech art team does.
You got it.
They're
So
asking.
tech artists, as an animator, we'll have a modeled character and then a rig, right? And that model character needs to be skinned and set up so that we can make a move around and set keyframes. More so than just that, our tech art team also handles making sure that all the characters, all the skeletons, all the skell meshes, all that sort of stuff is set up and implemented in the game correctly, as well as things like cloth, hair, that kind of stuff that needs to be simulated during the game. They'll set all that up for us. They handle a lot of our kind of like silly requests when we're being divas, like we discussed not too long ago.
Basically, the main question is, can I have more bones? Can I have more controllers to animate?
Can I have more bones? This looks
And on
like crap.
Valorant,
Can
the
you help
answer
me?
is no.
Sometimes, and we'll get into that.
Usually no.
Yeah. We have to be very smart with the bones that we have. And then the other thing that our tech artists do a lot, so pipeline things like, we need to export an animation, write those tools for us, things like pickers and pose libraries, stuff like that animators need. But also, you all help us when we're implementing animations. Sometimes we run into a problem, or maybe all the time we run into problems, and then we send up flares and yell for help. And that's when our friendly tech artists swoop in and fix it for us and make it all work. Does that answer? Is that a pretty good answer?
Yeah.
Sound
Yeah,
good?
no, that was great.
All right. Then next up is Alyssa Diaz, tech artist with the amazing red hair. And Alyssa, you joined Riot about a year ago, right? A little over a year ago.
Just over a year ago.
And before that, you worked with quite a few of us at Blizzard on Overwatch. And then before that, where were you?
Right before that, I was at ILM.
All right. Industrial Light and Magic. So again, you can see everyone's got kind of like a different path to get there. So the reason I'm asking everyone kind of like to go into this a little bit is that I think we might get some questions about like, how can I get to Riot, or how can I do this or do that, or how can I get there, do these things. It's different for everybody, right? So everyone's going to have a different path, and there's no one way to do it. All right. And then last but not least is the newest member to the Valorant animation team is Sarah. There you are. Sarah Anderson. Yeah. So Sarah is a tech artist, and she joined us in February,
Yes.
right? Right before the world went to and we were all forced to work from home. And so we all got to, I think we had lunch with Sarah once, and then we've only ever seen her like this since this whole thing started. So
Yeah, I was on campus for like 2 weeks before we all got booted home. Yeah.
yeah.
Welcome to
And-
Riot. Go home.
And Sarah, this is your, how long have you been working in tech art?
In tech art, a little over 3 years.
Okay.
at Riot's about 6 months.
Okay, cool. So that, again, that's a good example of, you know, we kind of run the gamut in the spectrum of like experience levels, time on the job, places you've worked, and all that sort of stuff. So Ginger, all right. What do we do now, guys? Let's see here.
I don't know.
Let's do this. Chat, throw out questions. We worked really hard to make sure that for this stream, maybe Adam should explain this thing real quick. But before we get to that, we've worked really hard so that for this stream, most of us can stream things from our work machines. So if you want to see an animation in Maya or a rig or something like that, bear with us while we make sure that it works. But it should work where we can actually show you our screens and you can ask us questions about our, you know, our tech and how we do stuff. All right, Lana, do you have any questions on deck or?
Sorry,
anything?
I had myself muted, but yeah, I saw one right away from Jordan Levy Barton. What does it take to be a tech artist?
Adam?
Yeah, Adam, you want to get this one?
Well, that is a great question. First, you got to be really smart, and
That's
and
true.
you got to be good at saving people's lives. Like they don't even
Adam,
let you
you're-
in the building unless you at least saved 10, 15 people's lives.
We agreed you wouldn't lie to people this time, Adam.
All right, why doesn't one of the smart people take that question?
Well, I'd say it's different. First of all, tech art is a really, really broad term. I think even more so than a lot of areas of CG, in that when you say tech art, it can mean a lot of different things in terms of what everyone does day to day. Some tech artists are just pipeline tech artists, and they are just working actually in code all day, and they rarely interact with assets. Other tech artists are more character tech artists. They're always working. They're mostly rigging focused and working on bringing assets into the engine. But a lot of the time, it differs depending on usually how big your team is too, how specialized you'll be. But generally, especially what I've found in games, it's a lot less segmented than say when I was in film, and there's teams are so big that usually you'll be more specialized in one area. And game teams, because typically the team's kind of smaller, you usually wind up sort of wearing many hats, like we do on Valorant with such a small tech art team, especially compared to other teams. Even at Riot, we all kind of we all have our own things that we focus in. I know I came from a more character and rigging focused background. Jue came from a computer science background. She knows a lot more about coding than I do. So we all sort of have our specialties, but you don't have to be basically it can differ depending on what path you sort of take. Jue, do you want to add to that, or?
Sure, yeah. So I think as a tech artist, like for me, I find most exciting about tech art is the problem solving and then challenge opportunity there. So kind of like you get a lot of opportunity to like go in and then do like some hands-on like content creation or content support work. Also, you can step back and think of those kind of like challenges like in the bigger scope, and then kind of like see if you can solve the problem from the root cause. So I think like tech art is a very kind of like very interesting kind of thing, but like I think you can find yourself enjoy it a lot if you love like problem solving and then helping people.
It also varies very much between studios, the definition of tech art. Some studios, tech art and character rigging are two entirely separate jobs. And I came from a studio like that. I only did character rigging. And then coming to Riot, I've now been getting into the other like aspects as well, more than just rigging. So it also very much depends on the studio of what exactly your day-to-day looks like.
So sort of an interesting question here that I'm gonna sort of pose to the tech artists as well as the animators, but you'll hear how it's worded. Where did it go? So this is from Burn the Midnight Oil. They asked, "Hi, what are the technical sides of things that you wish more animators are understood or could apply to their workflows so that they can work in a smaller team?" And from the animator perspective, just because I sort of think it's interesting to see both sides, and it is so collaborative. After that, I'd love to know sort of things that you really want to see from a tech artist. But we'll start with the tech art. What do you think? Is there anything that you wish your animators sort of understood more from a technical perspective while you're working with them on a team?
I think like definitely help. Like simple rigging knowledge. Like, hey, do I need a do I need a bone here to actually so that I can animate something? Stuff like that would definitely help. Like, I know like some of the smaller team doesn't have a rigging person, so maybe the animator will be the person who actually set up the rig for himself or herself to animate. So I think a simple it doesn't need to be deep, but like simple rigging knowledge would definitely help.
I think also knowledge of limitations. It helps to know kind of, but it's really our job to sort of impose limitations in some ways, and it's not always a fun job because it's like you want to we're obviously trying to do the most we can within any constraints that we have, but it helps for everyone to kind of be on the same page in terms of how okay, if someone has this crazy idea, what is actually what having it intuitively what the tech might be needed to make that happen, and is that something that we actually have the bandwidth to do.
I can speak to the animator side of that, where a lot of times I think for tech art, what it's nice to have with tech art is patience, because a lot of times for animators, you don't really know what you're going to need until you need it, and a lot of times there's just that iterative process back and forth, and that can be really taxing, and you need a tech artist to sort of just go on the journey with you and maybe just be patient. And also our tech artists have been great because they've been able to give us a lot of stuff for free. We've been able to sort of iterate on things that we'll animate something in basically like a core element that is shared among all the rigs in our game, because our team is a lot smaller than the league team, and in that space, we don't really have to focus on a lot of minutia. We can have broad strokes that affect that those animations then will sort of be sent out into the whole scope of the game, and that's tech art brilliance right there.
And I think it's also in problem solving, just trying to find the process of elimination, trying different things. If you're having a problem exporting something out, try and do a few things that will narrow the actual issue for the tech person, because if you don't, you're going to present them with this wide range of why isn't this working, and if you can narrow it down for them, your response time with them will be a much quicker turnaround and make their job so much easier. And it probably winds up being your fault anyway, that some stupid thing that you've done. So it's better to try and get that out of the way first.
Awesome.
Yeah, I really appreciate our tech artists because there's a lot of back and forth that goes on. And another tech artist that worked on Valorant, who's not here right now, is Jeremy Ernst. He helped us out for a few months, but he was awesome. And I was working with him on the Reyna rig. And I saw in chat that there was a lot of love thrown to Reyna earlier, which is cool. But Jeremy was cool because after he finished rigging Reyna, he actually threw in some cool animation just to test her out. That he had. I mean, if you guys don't mind, I would love to share that just because it's kind of like a fun little thing that he did.
Why don't you perform it right now, Billy?
I would.
Perform it.
Hey, Adam, can we get an air horn for Jeremy Ernst?
Yes.
Oh, there we go.
Can we also get rats in the chat for Jeremy? Why not, man? Let's flood it.
Yeah.
Let me see here. Can you guys see this on my screen?
It's coming.
Yes.
Oh,
yes, there, Billy.
All right. So
the nightmare continues.
This is what Jeremy sent to me after he rigged it, just so I can see how she deformed. Yeah.
I'd love to see Brimstone do that.
I gotta say, who wore it better? I prefer the Brimstone version.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Brimstone was the best. Maybe we can pull that up later. But no, I was just saying, like, Jeremy was awesome because he did that, and it allowed me to see how the character deformed really quickly. And there was like some issues with her belt that we had to work out rigging to make it look nice. So, got a lot of fun out of that. He just threw in some KDA motion capture that he had laying around, and that was fun to see. Thanks, Jeremy. You're the best.
So, speaking more to the specific process of what's going on behind the scenes with Valorant, can you just, for anybody who might not be familiar with game dev, can you walk us through the process of coming up with new agents and their abilities, and discuss a little bit about how they impact the game overall? Like, what different teams do you work with to discuss bringing a character to life? And I forgot to copy down who asked that question. Great question. But there's like a ton of demand for anything you can show behind the scenes. I'm just going to pitch that out there rather than naming off people. I see you. Anything you guys want to show off, please pull it up at your discretion.
All right. Does someone want to walk us through the process of making a character for Valorant, or do you want me to do it?
Lay it on him, Dave.
Do it, Dave.
So it usually always starts with like gameplay design idea. Usually the designers are finding, oh, there's a hole here, right? There's a type of play style we want to, fulfill, or there's a type of kit that we're thinking about, like with Killjoy. Oh, we want someone who can sort of like set up and hold an area down. That's kind of where it starts. Like that's the nugget of it all. And then from there, it'll go into concept, and you'll have concept artists just create hundreds of different designs. If it's male or female or a robot or this, or it has a dragon or like whatever, like you just anything goes at that point, right? Just try to find what's cool, what fits the kit, what feels like it'll kind of fit in the game. And then once the concept gets far enough along and everyone's feeling like, hey, we're getting pretty close here, that's when all the teams will start to weigh in. And you'll have your modeling team, animation, tech art, VFX, and audio. And we'll all say, okay, we're into this, but this belt here is going to be a problem, or this cape might be an issue, or the hair is too long, or who knows what, throw a bunch of stuff out. Or we may not even just poo-poo things there. We might just say, this is cool, we want to do it, but it's going to be really hard. So we need to make sure that we're ready for this type of work that's going to come up. Like with, Killjoy was another one where it's like, okay, we're going to place things in the world that already is going to start creating issues for us. Can it go into the wall? What's going to happen with that sort of thing? Once everyone kind of signs off and says, let's do it, let's make this character, it's going to look like this, it's going to be this, we'll get a proxy model done as fast as possible. So it'll be real quick, kind of dirty. And that proxy model is just there to kind of like hold the shapes so that we can see like, okay, this is what they're going to look like. This is kind of their silhouette. And then that kind of kicks off the whole process so that everyone can begin to work in tandem. Tech art will rig it. Animation will start doing poses and animation tests. We'll start putting them into the game as design is working on their work. And we begin to play test as soon as we can using that proxy model. And then from there, we basically just keep refining and iterating. After each play test, we talk about what worked, what didn't work, what we need to tweak. And sometimes, it's not often, but sometimes we'll get almost all the way to the finish line, and we'll just have a gut check, and we'll be like, is this as good as it can be? And every once in a while, we might go, you know what? Let's go back to the model. Let's tweak a few things. It's going to cause some rework for other departments, but it'll make it better for the player in the end. And then that's pretty much how it goes. It kind of becomes a little bit of a waterfall. Once we get through that early proxy prototyping phase, then everyone is working in tandem, and every day when we play test, we see the updates come in for every single discipline.
If I can I add some real quick? Also, at
Absolutely.
the very beginning, we also chatted a lot about with our initial lineup pre-launch of this game, and even continuing into the future. We talked about how we really like to lay them out so that each one is sort of an owner of its own archetype. A lot of times, no matter where you are, where you work, or what you're working on, a lot of people are always saying like this character should be the most epic ever. Like I know we just did the most epic ever, but we should make this one the most epic ever. And that is a blanket of bland. It ends up being nothing. And so arguably in the beginning, if you can, you want to really streamline. This is the smartest character. This is the most evil character. This is the sexiest character, so that we can really lean into those and sort of set the ends as we move forward, because it keeps things more unique in their own space.
Yeah, and we'll probably drive this home a lot more as we keep talking, but that's something that our animation team really, we pride ourselves on it, and it's kind of the driving force, is that no matter what asset we're making, down to a weapon reload or a first person thing or just, you know, whatever the smallest asset is to the biggest asset, we want to approach it always from a place of how would this character do that thing. So I've seen a lot of questions come up where it's like, how do you keep personality and show personality and stuff in first person in a show? Well, that I sort of start with. So Paul, first person for feet. And one of the ones I remember we were trying to figure out was, you know, his flash where he ignites it with a snap, right? Well, he didn't always do that. It just kind of turned on, and we went round and round like, well, what would Phoenix do to make that fire start? You know, like what would the coolest thing for Phoenix to do? And he's kind of full of himself, you know, that kind of stuff, and that's where it all kind of starts. And then from there, we usually just try to do like quick poses to figure out like, okay, is this reading? Does it feel like a snap? Does it seem fast enough that like it shows confidence in the snap, or do we want it to be a little slower, like he's bored? And like there's a lot of things you can do there just by moving some frames around and changing poses. So I don't want to blab on. What's next?
So thinking about those poses, this is sort of a combination question from some of the ones I saw in chat and one that I actually saw on Twitter earlier, though I don't have the username up right now. Josiah, you talked during the intro about wanting to really connect the character in like the character select screen with the character that you're playing. And considering you only get to see the hands of the character you're playing, do you just get to see the hands, really? Sort of what does this animation look like behind the camera? And is it difficult to translate something that you can have live within this full body into something that you realistically can only see from the wrist down?
So I can actually pull up, if you give me a second, I can pull up the Cipher Rig. The Cipher Rig for one of his first person animations, and we can take a look at what that looks like, if that's cool with everyone. For Cipher, and for first person in general, there's a lot of cheating. So kind of giving the perception of that you're at eye level and where the shoulders are they're very fluid. So you can do a lot of cheating to make it feel like he's holding something a specific way, and how somebody holds something or how somebody takes something out can tell you about a bit more about who they are. So for example, Cipher is a very sleight of hand character, so he pulls out coins, he pulls out stuff from his jacket, like he's very kind of like tricky, right? Whereas when I was doing Brimstone's first person, Brimstone, we came to the conclusion that he's kind of a more of an old school guy that doesn't really understand or really care for technology too much. So a lot of the way he interacts with the bracer, which was made for him, I believe, by Killjoy, he doesn't really understand it besides the basic functions. So a lot of his interactions with it are either quick and like forceful, as opposed to like how you would generally interact with something like that.
Yeah, I think something you touched on earlier, Josiah, too, was you're saying it's just all a big cheat. It's all a big magic trick in first person. You basically do whatever you have to do to the rig and the geometry to make it look and feel the way you want in first person. Lana, how's that snack?
They can't see me.
Super crunchy.
Oh, you guys can still hear me. I'll mute myself. That's so funny. So you guys can hear me. The chat can't hear me. Like the stream can't hear me. I forgot. I have to mute two different places. I'm so sorry.
That's all right. That's all right.
It looks great in post. I will mute myself. I'm eating lunch. I have to sit here for 7 hours, dog.
Yeah, I hear you. Josiah, do you have that file open
Yeah,
yet?
I just got it loaded. I'm gonna have to switch over to the OBS thing.
So yeah, while he does that, the short answer really is 1P is the one sort of bit of relief we get in game development, in that we have a fixed camera that we know the viewer is always going to see, and that's exactly why, to Dave's point, it's a great cheat, and it's a great space to be able to cheat and just fit things in. I mean, if maybe Josiah is going to show us something great, because it's like super. You can bork these things so that they're completely twisted, and players never know. It's a total magic trick.
Yeah, and quite often we'll think of the staging for an ability with that 1P in mind before we even consider the 3P, just because we have to stage it before that one camera.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's all lies. We shouldn't even be telling you this.
It's all
How do you guys
lies.
How do you guys typically start your 1P work? When you have to start an animation in 1P, how do you guys usually start it?
Ooh.
Great question.
Great question.
I mean, I think all of us work pretty differently. We all have sort of our own workflow that works the best. I always start off with just shooting some reference. So I'm like the reference guy. I love shooting video reference, and I can speak to that a little bit more about my process and workflow. But yep, I jump in, I just start moving around, get that GoPro camera right in front of you. It's really good for referencing.
Yeah, Billy has a workflow, like plugs the GoPro so that his hands get in front of it, and then he'll just try different hand poses and movements, and then he'll what do you bring it into Maya, and then you'll like time warp it a little bit to kind of get it snappier and kind of play around with the timing.
Oh, there we go.
So can you guys see? I got the Maya up.
Yeah, we see it.
I'm two people in the meeting now.
You're 3 people, dude.
Dang. Oh god. All right, so this is Cipher's like 1P rig. So what you're looking at is basically a disembodied version of the character. So he is basically comes in like this, and then we pose it out to be where we want. So you can see that I'm really cheating this shoulder way down here so that I get the read that I want. And I'll just play this. You can see what it looks like in game over here, and then this is what the actual like Maya file from a third person perspective looks like. And then, so like there's different things like we do his jump. And so you can see right here, I'm actually, so somebody asked about cloth earlier. We have dynamics on cloth, but occasionally I like to try to get a bit more of a handcrafted feel because, and do some like slight cloth animation. So you can see it kind of stretching here as if he's falling. So the longer he falls, the more stretch it gets. Let's see what else we have.
And real quick for the tech artists, are these arms the same ones, the same mesh as our 3P character?
No.
Okay, but do our thank you. Do the arms sit in the same spot though as the mesh, so that when we rig them,
Yes.
we can share bones and share skinning information?
So this is actually the spine 4 bone, right?
They are in the same position if you are a male character. And if you are a female character, the arms are actually in the same position as the male characters in first person. In third person, the shoulders are brought in a small amount. So the skeleton actually is different between the two, at least for the female. And then the mesh is a higher res version for the first person because we can allow it. There is a down res version that is what you see in the third person.
Yeah,
and there's more bones too in the first person for the arms.
The thing I wanted to just make clear was that the first and third person are both entirely separate things. We kind of leave them in the same space inside the scene because some things will be shared. It's just kind of like a smarter way to work. But most of the time, in my experience, your first person arms and your rig are completely separate from your third person one. All right, Josiah, what do you got now? Any more tidbits?
I'm just still streaming while you're talking, so people can see how the rig works. So for things like this, I usually like to try to show the arm coming up on screen sometimes, and I've always found that like having the elbow lead for certain things is really nice. But there's a lot of cheating going on here too. Like the transition from this pose to like that pose is a big jump that you don't see because it's behind the hand.
So there's a question in the chat that I saw.
And so I think to answer the person's question about how do you start, I think you probably, I'm guessing for Josiah, you may be a little bit like me, but you're going to find one or two poses within what you're currently looking at. You find one or two poses probably that were close to, if not some sort of semblance of the original, like concept keyed poses that you might have done to sort of prove the concept of this particular animation.
Yeah, so I actually did, actually I could show those as well. I actually have some videos of my early, I did some video reference, but I did a lot of like in-game testing. This will show a really old rig, if I can.
I saw a question in the chat from Superpat. What FOV do you like to animate to when you're in your first-person camera?
So it's set by our relationship to the game, and I believe 1P is 70 FOV or something for but that's an Unreal number. In Maya, our FOV is 25.05, I believe. And so we don't like really affect that much because it doesn't. Because in games, when you affect the FOV of the camera for the character, it doesn't affect the FOV of the camera in the world unless you have special tech set up. So it would only affect the character if you mess with the FOV in first person.
Yeah. Now, usually the FOV that you want for your first person hands for the mesh that's there, that's going to be something that you're going to work with your engineers and your designers on, just to get kind of like close to where most everything's going to sit. And I think for us, it probably sits around 45, right?
Yeah.
So
that sounds good.
We know that like that's kind of the baseline FOV. And FOV is tricky because the number in Maya is different from Unreal, different from other engines. So let's say our base is 45. What we'll do is, let's say we want to do like a punch. When the punch is going out, in order to make it feel even better in first person, we'll crank that FOV for like one frame. We'll just like pop it up real crazy so that the arm gets like super stretched out and then comes back. And it's those little tiny moments where we'll kind of play with it. You should feel it. You shouldn't see it when you're playing the game.
Do you have a version of that, like Josiah, where you animate the camera? Because I'm sure that person also was probably trying to drive it, like, you know, the camera is a character in the first person animations. Albeit a small one, because whenever we as animators want to try to make something juicy, they instantly tell us it makes them sick or whatever. These jerks out there that don't understand the brilliance of the set of people sitting before you today. But this is being recorded, right? And playing all the riot. Yeah.
Oh, don't worry. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to going back to campus. It'll be great. Anyway, so we'll have to pull that animation back a great deal, just so I mean, this is kind of a cliche in animation, but you feel it, you don't see it. So that is that's something by all means you play
I will
with.
I'll grab Brimstone's Molly equip. There's a lot of camera animation on that, and I toned it down so we can take a look at that.
So somebody also had another great question in chat regarding these animations from the third person perspective. So if the players who are playing the character see this from the one-person rig, how do the other players see the animations from the third-person rig? Or did the third-person rigs just not have these animations?
So I'm a big... I don't think that they need to be somewhat similar, but I don't think they need to match one-to-one. Unless those actions are like humongous. But generally we try to match at least around what you're doing in first person with what you're doing in third person. So for example, so basically for Brimstone pulling out his Molly, he basically does the same action in third person that he does in 1P, down to him, pulling the casing out and putting it in the gun. That's all basically timed the same. But for somebody like, a good example is actually Cipher. In first person, he pulls the coin out and rolls it, but in third person, he literally just pulls it out of his pocket. Like there's not an actual visual connection, because the value to show him coin rolling in third person is so small compared to in first person that it's not necessary to really do the exact same thing in that instance.
Yeah, you're kind of overcomplicating something that can just remain simple. Yeah. One kind of like a high level overview of how the animation team approaches all of the work is that we'll cast an animator to a character. And so let's use what's a good example. So Paul was cast to animate Breach. Now, the way that goes is Paul will start with the first person work first. He'll get the arms, he'll start trying things, oh, how does this look? How does this feel? And he's kind of like the keeper of that character for the animation team. Like, he's so deep in it because he's been on it the longest, and it's his job to kind of like understand who the character is, why things move a certain way, and those types of things. Then as production goes on, usually a second animator will come on to help do the third person animation after the first person is already well on its way. So that first animator is kind of setting the tone for the character. Then the second animator will come on largely to recreate what they've done in 1P and 3P. It comes with its own set of challenges. It's not like it's easy or copying. And then from there, the person the sort of like owner animator, once all the work is done and all the gameplay stuff is done, they will then also do the character select animation. So it's kind of like that comes full circle. Like they figure out who the character is, what makes them tick, what kind of movement makes them special. And then at the end, they get to kind of put it all together into that character select animation. That kind of like everyone gets to drink in when they load it up.
So back to the idea of like camera animation. I think we were talking about that a second ago. I'm actually surprised that this is in the game because it's pretty extreme. But if you look at this, basically what we're doing in this one is this is an overall controller that I have made everything be a child of, so it all moves together. So you can see when I move it back and forth, this gets bigger or smaller because it's actually zooming in or going in and going out. But in this instance, I kind of let it go, and then you can see that it rotates slightly when he hits the thing down. They puts the bullet in, and then rotates slightly down and up and back when he loads it in.
And you're talking about the camera, right, Josiah?
I'm talking about the camera because the camera
Can you turn those blocks off template maybe? It's kind of hard to see.
Oh, that's right. Let me turn those back on to.
If it's easy.
Yeah. So what Josiah is talking about, you guys can't see me on stream, I don't think, but watch the corners of the screen when he says that it's he's rotating it. You'll see the screen kind of shake a little bit when he puts
you can see the diagonals of the. You can really see the boxes moving. It's a lot better. It's a lot better this color.
And those boxes are moving because of the camera. Those boxes are not actually animated. That's right.
The boxes are not moving. So you're getting this feeling, but you're getting this feeling of kind of the attempt is to try to get this feeling of like, oh, he's putting it's a kind of a heavy gun, so he has to lean forward a bit and then back and then pull his back to pull the gun closed, and then it lands, right? Yep. And for first person animation and in our game specifically, you need to be able to fire right away. And if this isn't ready to fire and the camera is mostly not back at 0, it'll create a pop and you won't shoot where you want. So it's got to be back to like basically 0 camera animation at a certain frame so that you can actually shoot where you want to shoot. Yeah, and the boxes, that's kind of a good trick just for any animation. Rather than animating your character or 1P in a gray void of nothingness, throw some boxes in there, throw a checkered pattern or grid or something, because then it's gonna let you see the spacing of all your movement. And especially if you're doing camera animation, you have to have some point of reference. So that's why we use those boxes.
All right, awesome. So speaking of little camera tricks, I saw a question from earlier from Rosie Ms. I think this is a bit of a hybrid of a technical and animation question. How are certain animations animated, such as Jet's tailwind when she propels forward? Are you animating the character in place and then leaving the actual propelling forward in the engine, or are you animating all the secondary yourself?
That's a great question.
Are we talking about the gameplay? Is that in game?
It sounds like she's asking about. It sounds like she's talking about when Jet dashes is the animation animated the distance that he dashes or not? Is that what I'm understanding? Yeah. I can pull up the animation.
Well, you can also maybe you could just speak to it while you find it.
So
Too.
basically, for that kind of stuff, she can go a variable distance, right? She can smack into a wall and stop moving. She can hit another player and not go anywhere. So what's actually happening in Engine is she is actually her player character capsule, like the thing that she exists in, is being moved at a certain speed in a certain direction, depending on where the input is and what the player is doing. And then what we do is we author animations in place, and I'll just show you what those look like. So that, because at the beginning and end of that animation, she has to end up at the same spot in the animation so that her position in the world is not offset from her player capsule. So it's kind of maybe a little too technical.
Another way you can also do that too is, let's say you wanted to animate Jet dashing through the scene, like actually moving through space, because that just helps you visualize what should actually be happening. You can go ahead and do that, and then before you export, you can just mute that controller that's moving her through space. So basically, she'll just animate in place when you export it into Engine, and then programmatically, she'll move through space based on what's going on in the game world.
Yeah. And
So
a good way to do that, I mean, a good way for us when we do it in place is because in Engine, the game designer can choose to change the distance that she travels. And so you don't want to actually animate her traveling because it could change multiple times. So in place helps with that.
So this is basically what like the north dash looks like. It moves only in the space that it's animated. And attempting to keep the head at least forward and back in a similar position. It's a bit difficult of a animation, or to keep the head in this exact same position, and then she would look like she's flying. But
yeah, and then the other thing to remember too is that it's not like Josiah just opened up a blank Maya scene, plopped Jet in, and then made this. Like it starts out with just some poses, and then you put those in Engine just to make sure, like, okay, do I like, the shapes her body is making? Like, does it read well inside the game space? And then from there, Josiah would slowly iterate and polish and start to stretch more and more. And we got
frame.
And I think we got some we pushed it pretty far.
Yeah.
This animation team definitely likes to go too far, which I applaud that. I think that's what we should do. And then I know that there were some issues where we were seeing issues during playtests where she was getting like too stretched out and it was kind of looking kind of weird. And so we just had to dial that back a little bit. And
another thing that has to do with like the difference between 1P and 3P. This is an instance where I kind of did try to keep 1P and 3P similar, where when she goes left and right, she kind of pushes herself with her arms, or when she dashes forward, she actually does like do a similar motion. It's just really fast.
So I see a question real quick here. Someone was like, "Do you have some scripts like Tween Machine?" So personally, Tween Machine is kind of like my main tool. You could say I'm also a little bit of an old fogey because everyone else is like Animbot, and I'm just kind of like, I have the way I work. I don't want to use it, but I think everyone else is in love with Animbot.
You got to get on that Animbot life.
Yeah, Animbot's the best.
Amazing.
I highly recommend it.
I'm with Dave on that one.
Really shows your age.
Keyframe it.
Doesn't Animbot have Tween Machine?
It does.
Yeah,
it does.
Tween Machine is basically like a very basic functionality now.
It's just so many colors. Animbot has so many colors. I'm
but those selection sets.
Oh my,
we do a lot. We do a lot with layers. I think Adam probably is the worst offender.
Or the best offender.
God forbid you have to open up Adam's file and go through like 57 animation.
Don't
get him started.
Don't let him. Don't. I'm scared. I'm scared,
Up
guys.
your grandpa.
Yeah, it's a great background.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
How did you get that?
Do we?
Listen,
Lana, do we have any questions for tech art? Have you seen any that have popped up?
I'm looking back through my list. There's so many came in right when we started. So give me 1 second to sort of roll.
Another one that just caught my eye was, how does the keyframing workflow vary artist to artist? Are there layered keyframing workflows versus post to post stepped workflows? I would say it's very different on this team.
Both of those are keyframes.
I think we've all worked on animation teams where sometimes people try to force a workflow, which, in my opinion, is just going to lead to mediocre result, and your animator is kind of going to be unhappy if they have to work a way that they're not comfortable with. So as long as an animator, my view is that as long as an animator can deliver the final product, I'm okay with the workflow sometimes being like a complete mess. Like,
you're talking about Adam, right?
I'm kind of talking about Adam a little bit.
Oh, Jesus.
It's amazing to watch because I would say, like, out of us, if I was to pick, I'd probably say like Josiah, myself, and Lorenzo. We tend to do a little bit more of a pose to pose, like very clear, tight blocking when we do it. Adam's is a little bit more like, I don't know, like a kid with
Wild
a
West.
paintbrush,
Wild West.
just slapping the paint on there. And
If I could defend myself real quickly, we don't need to absorb 90 minutes with this, but we certainly could. The idea that basically I keyframe as well in the beginning and we just post things out and prove them. Yes, that's what we all, I think that's probably pretty standard. But after I keyframe and get my blocking done, well, then I treat it like a symphony, and I literally will just start with just the core. I will mute other parts of the body, and I will get just the chest, or maybe just the chest and the head, to sort of just start moving the way I want them to move. And then I'll start adding in other things. And so, yeah, I'll use layers because, Mozart, Chopin.
Oh, boy.
Adam,
oh, boy.
It's just a way to approach, I'm giving respect to a career that I respect.
Very good.
What?
Very
What?
Good.
Yeah.
Well,
Listen to him.
with that,
that's ridiculous.
Excellent defense. Just some good questions rolled in for tech art. There's a couple, but let's start off with tech art. What was one of the most challenging characters that you've worked on from a purely technical perspective?
Starts with a B, ends with a reach.
I almost said, I keep getting them confused too. I almost said brimstone. I'm like, no, I mean breach. It's so hard. It's still hard for me to think of brimstone as brimstone and not his former name.
His working name. Yeah.
His work name used to be Jeff. We just used to call him Jeff.
It was Jeff. It wasn't Jeff.
Not Jeff.
Yeah, Breach did have just because there's so many pieces, it was kind of a pain to work with. But I think probably, I imagine since like Jue has been on the team the longest of any of us, I think, especially certainly of any of the tech artists. I'm sure you have stories from before, or like, so you've seen some of these characters go through so many different iterations. What do you feel like over time, what turned into be the biggest?
Yeah, I think like it's kind of unique for us because we do not so each character has same proportions, so we kind of share the rigs like across all the characters, and then I'll see the beginning of settling down. Hey, what's the very first the core rig looks like would be like, because you need to consider a lot about how it can be shared and how we can expand from that for all the needs that we will need later on. And then another pretty interesting like stories are like we had like early like debates about like, hey, can we use cloth in game because we have very low perf budget, and then those kind of like questions early on we kind of had to really look at like starting from the design of the characters. Like if we cannot have cloth, then we cannot have big capes. Like things like that would be like, I guess it's not like very complicated. It's a lot about like iterations on the ideas you want to get, and then kind of like balance out the the actual kind of solution on like creativity versus tech limits?
I agree. I think like it's sometimes what you expect to be the most complicated does not turn out to be actually the most complicated. Sometimes it can be the simplest thing. Like I just spent a ridiculously long amount of time trying to resolve this thing with we did not want Hunter's cape to Sova. Sova's cape to go to be, there was a, you know, like our team is very, very focused on integrity of the gameplay, and there was people had complained that sometimes his cape when you're strafing can give you away behind a corner because it would flail out when you're going quickly back and forth. And we were like, how can we, without losing all of the motion of the cape, still dampen it when in there? And so I spent a long time with making this crazy graph to try to make it so that the cape will, when strafing, be calm, and when in all other situations where it's okay, be more fluid. And so it's things like, you know, the end result is something you ideally would never even think of, you don't notice, but what goes into it is kind of ridiculous.
It's one of those jobs I feel that if it's going great, you know, that's something that nobody's picking up on it.
Yeah,
if
exactly.
It's like the perfect situation, people don't really see it. Because you see the bugs and then you're like, oh, what technical person messed this up? But it's certainly unsung. So here's a question from A. Sean for Tech Art. How do you tackle animation state machines with your animators? Or do you?
You don't let them touch it.
We have the same. So
Don't let animators do that.
There's a core state machine that's actually all of the gun and navigating animations are shared across all the characters. So they're sharing the same core state machine that actually is not. It's compiled in a C++. It's not in. Jue, correct me if I say anything incorrect, but there's. It's not actually in a state, when you go in a state machine, that you can edit the normal way. We do create state machines for specific things for per character if there's something they need for their abilities, because there's the unique animations for every character's abilities, and for the abilities themselves if necessary. But that is for performance wise, it is actually compiled into C++. It's not a state machine that you could go in and edit.
Guys, I'll take a break to say that there's way too much Josiah in the stream.
Huh? What do you mean?
Too much.
No idea.
You gotta take your.
By the way, Josiah, what are we looking at on your screen?
We had a chat request here to pull up the Maya window. If you can walk us through this business.
Oh, so this is yeah. I'm not sure what's going on with this part. Don't know what's going on with that. That's fun.
Looks great.
But this is kind of an example of how much cheating you can do in first person. So like you can see like, well, this is not supposed to look like this, but basically how to get the feeling of the throw, like, but then you can see basically how far, like look how far this is off. Like the shoulder control is from the camera. Its default position is there. So
yeah,
like,
and those stretches are what, 1 frame, maybe 2?
Yeah, so this is animated at 60 FPS. So these are one frame. Yeah, see, so that's what that looks like between the two. So this is running very quickly, and the goal is like, hopefully you're never seeing this, but you're feeling it, right? So and so for example, like Jet's throw, her first frame of the throw, her arm is like broken back here.
So we're getting also some questions about the guns specifically. I've seen a lot of questions about like wondering if we could see any of the actual gun models, or wondering what the gun rigs look like, because there's different gun skins that you can get, right? So how does that work when you're working with these files and doing the different animations per character per different guns?
I think are Billy and I the only people here that have worked on guns?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
Okay. So you did too, Lorenzo?
no. no, no.
You
Oh,
mean
okay.
you mean skins, right? Gun skins.
Yeah, it's skins or guns, because it's kind of the same. The rigs are like set up similar, right? Because they need to kind of copy animations and work for the base level.
It depends, because so all the guns, there's a core set of animations that all the guns share. Or I mean, each gun has their own core set of animation. And when there's a new gun skin, depending on the skin, you could have a different animation for that gun, for like the equip, the reload, the firing. The dragon specifically is one of those that, you know, the gun was a totally different rig. It was basically a dragon. And that was a lot of fun for our friend Sean McSheen to animate. So when he animates, let's say it was the, was it the Guardian, or no, what's an animation?
Vandal is
Okay,
Vandal
like,
has.
let's say the Vandal, right?
I'm actually gonna pull up the Vandal. I didn't animate this. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
open the file.
Yeah, but when he animates the new Vandal dragon animation, we'll just go into the animation blueprint and replace the core Vandal animation with the dragon animation. If you had bought that skin with that level up to get the animation, then you would get that.
So while Josiah's finding the file, we've got about 30 minutes left on this stream. What are some other things that we can like be sure to touch on or show or answer before we're done? Because it'll be over. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I've just seen a lot of asking about our face rigs, Alyssa.
Oh,
I don't
really?
know if you show off character select or not.
Oh, show the rig?
If you want, Alyssa, I have the Jet character select my file, and you could kind of talk through that too if you want. If I was to show that,
Sure.
because I thought it's a good example of a lot of the nice rigging tools that we have for noodle bones and stretching, and we can also look at her face. It's pretty simple, but
All right.
Sure.
So first things first, while you pull that up, I see Josiah does have one of these gun models up. We're gonna pull that up quickly.
Oh,
come on, Paul.
Lord.
Are you like just pulling these from our like Facebook or something?
I'm hacking your machines.
So I want to be very clear. The master that animated this is Sean. McSheen, and he's not here, so I can't speak to like, I don't know much about this rig. I just wanted to pull it up so you could see it because people were asking about the different rigs. But you know, this has got a lot of extra controls for different elements of the actual dragon. So any kind of extra motion you'll see will be put on stuff like these new bones, whereas the default, like Vandal, obviously does not have anything like this. But that's kind of all I have because I didn't animate this.
But looking at the
dragon.
Yeah, like looking at the rig, it's nothing crazy, right? Is it mostly an FK chain, or is there any IK spline stuff in there?
So this looks like this is FK. These are.
The rig is pretty simple. It's mostly FK controls on the neck part, and then we did add like something like for the breathing. We had like a bone for that to push on to scale, so it feels like the dragon is breathing a bit. And then we have some setup in the head part,
there
which
it is.
can open the
Nice.
jaw
That's
and
cool.
stuff like that.
Yeah, what's really nice
that's
to see is
cool.
that for other tech artists and animators out there that may not be in the industry yet, it's not complicated. Like this is your rig can be simple and it can be just functional. It doesn't need to be super fancy, and you can get everything you need out of just an FK joint chain most of the time.
People were talking about the trigger. This is a foot. He has 1 foot. This poor dragon has 2 front feet and 1 back foot.
Lana, can you switch over to my screen?
Yes, sir.
All right. Hopefully it looks good for everybody. So, is it working?
Yeah.
Sweet. So this is the scene file for Jet's character select animation, where she comes in, she does her thing, and hangs out. What I wanted to show everybody was kind of just some quick workflow stuff that just I used for this scene. Typically, I'll have one panel will just be my fixed camera, and another panel will be my perspective view, so that I can select whatever I need to do to key and move stuff around over here. And then I like to keep the graph editor up down below. As you can see, no anim bot or anything to be seen, but that's just because I'm a weirdo. The rig here. So we have options for the face controls. Do you like it better in default lighting? Do you think that looks better? Probably.
Yeah, it's nice.
So we have primary, secondary, and then tertiary controls for the facial rig that we have. Over here, Alyssa made the rig so that you just select the head control and you can turn them all on and off here. Minor eyes, eyebrows, nose, lips, cheeks, all that sort of stuff. So right now you're actually seeing, I think all of them are on, right? Except for nose, yeah. So what this does is I can grab, here's a good example with the brow. I can select this controller and I can move. Oh no. This is what happens when you're doing it live.
Did it crash?
I don't think so. Don't look.
Oh no!
Don't look.
Oh my god.
I think it's your video card is probably freaking out. It's not doing stuff.
You know what? Now Maya's crashed. All right, switch cameras.
Yeah.
Switch somebody else.
Oh.
Maya's crashing.
And Maya
Abort.
Oh
So
my
I want
gosh.
to make it clear.
Yeah.
You work in Maya. That's your life.
Welcome
Save,
to being
save
an
often.
Save
often.
Everybody
that's a
asks,
really
what
cool
does that
face rig,
feel
though.
like?
Go
Okay.
ahead.
And to be clear, that was not a problem with the face rig. That was a Maya problem.
Yeah, yeah.
Wait, I had to be switched wigs.
Yeah, 110. 10 after 1. That's a wardrobe change. The wardrobe
Oh
change.
my god.
Get with the program, guys.
I'm sorry.
Okay, well, in the meantime, something that I personally have heard a lot about in like the last 24 hours, and I saw in the chat about 1,000,000 times, people asking about reference, specifically Billy getting called out for being the reference guy.
Yo.
Yeah.
Wha-
I'm the reference guy.
Could you talk more about why you're the reference guy?
All right.
Maybe show us, give us a taste.
Yeah, I mean, it's just an animation workflow that I found to be really helpful, and it helps me a lot with my speed as well. I think it just for me because I studied acting throughout college, and I'm a big movement guy with martial arts and gymnastics, so it just comes automatic to me to be able to do a lot of different movements or getting into the head of the character and act it out. So for me, that workflow works really well. So I made like a 6-minute video that goes through sort of my reference workflow. If you guys want to see that, we can just play that.
Maybe you could play it and kind of just talk over it.
All right.
little
I
bit?
mean, there's some talking over it, but I can also add stuff to it.
Yeah.
All right, let me pull that up. Okay. Let me share my screen.
I mean, it looks like Alyssa's got the face rig up. Her Maya's behaving.
Ooh,
Okay.
let's see if that works.
Is this working?
Yeah. Looks great.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know why. Yeah.
All right,
it didn't.
let's jump
So
back to the face rig, and then we'll go back
This
to
is
the
just-
Okay.
face.
Yep.
give you.
Oh, is that remote?
eh,
Yeah, what I
Oh,
really
I'm not
like.
even sick. So like, yeah, this
There
is
you
just
go.
like the what Dave was talking about. These are like
Oh
the.
my.
I really like what Alyssa did, where she has these driver controls that when you move them will drive the secondary and even the tertiary control. So that helps a lot with the speed for us when we're animating.
Oh, wait a minute.
Another really fun thing about this face setup is all of our characters actually share the same, and correct me if I get the wording wrong, but they share the same vert order and vert count, correct?
Sorry, I'm into it. Yes, all of the faces share the same vert order so that we can share the setup between characters and then just edit it to customize it for that character.
Yeah, and so that
Here's
makes
my-
your that makes your tool super powerful.
Oh
and
Lord.
Screen
Very
grab.
nice. Very nice.
Oh, radiant smile is a good one.
He's beautiful.
This-
Are there any other specific questions about the face rig that anyone wants to see? Choose inclusion. Someone asked about triangles. I don't know. We're not modelers. I don't know.
Okay, are the controllers manipulating blend shapes, or are they skinning?
No, this is all joints. So that's
For-
sort of why we don't use any blend shapes. We're actually in the process of trying to see like there's any way that we might be able to afford them, but we haven't because of perf reasons. We're very restricted, so we went for this is all joints, and it's 4 max influences that we have to deal with, so that's why it's very difficult, especially around the mouth, to avoid any kind of janky skinning things, because you only, each vert can only be influenced by 4 bones, so it does put a lot of oh, here we go.
So,
Are you?
with shared
boy.
vert counts and orders on character faces, are there any faces that were a big challenge?
Oh.
Well, so there are like Omen and Cipher are
Stop.
they have unique faces. So
Oh yeah.
we just handle those. They're a little bit simpler. I don't think. Is there anyone else that any other face that's?
We went through a lot of iteration,
yeah,
I think,
sure, I'll open up,
with Viper's face.
Yeah, but as far as the rig and stuff, they're all built off of the same, other than Omen and Cipher, right?
Yeah, and we talked about how the face in game is,
Yeah.
the face in the playable game isn't the same face that's in the character select because of perf and bone count and all that entails.
Yeah, also Cipher actually use the same face as well, but we actually did some interesting exploration to wrap Cipher's face to the shape of the base face and then apply the same setup on it and then push it back. So Cipher would work the same way, but like they look very different, but it still works.
Alyssa, you need to post that picture.
Post it. Wait, what picture?
Oh wait, Lorenzo, you got to show your video first.
Yeah. So what? Let's do this.
Yeah.
Let's
We
do
don't got
this.
a lot of time left.
Let's let Billy talk about how he uses reference, and we can have a quick conversation about that and maybe some of our other workflows, just real fast.
Yeah.
And we'll save
I
like the
don't wanna-
last 5 or 10 minutes for some of the goofy stuff that we have.
Okay, cool. So I usually shoot my reference front and side angle if I can. I just take it into like Premiere or any video editing software, edit them together, and then export out QuickTime videos. And so I'll just skip that beginning part and just go straight into Maya. Here.
My scene, I got
Can you mute it, Billy?
Just here in her
Yep.
idle position for the.
All right. So here in Maya, in your main camera, just image plane, import image, or import video movie, because it's make sure it's a QuickTime video, because Maya can only read QuickTimes. So I bring the reference in, and if you can't see it, make sure image plane is showing in your show window. So the first thing I do is I set the depth to 1000 so that the image plane goes behind my character. And then you can also resize the video reference, move it in X or Y. And then I just try to match my 3D character to one of the angles, preferably the front angle. Works pretty well when I'm blocking it out. So the cool thing about using reference in Maya is you can adjust the speed and the timing of the video reference to match what you need. So I know from the designer, this is Sage's wall cast ability. And from the designer, they wanted the wall cast to be about 0.7 seconds, which is pretty fast. And obviously, I'm not moving that fast. So if you do the math, 0.7 seconds is about 21 frames. So I'm changing my timeline to 21 frames. And then what I do with the reference is in the reference attribute, there's a frame offset attribute. I just key that on the first frame. Then I go to the last frame, and I middle mouse drag that attribute to the end of my animation. So now that just retimed my whole reference animation to work within 21 frames. And it's going to be a lot faster, but that's what we need for the game. And then you just want to make sure the curve of that frame offset is set to linear so that it plays smoothly in Maya. So now I just use the reference, go through, and I basically find key poses for my animation. So the first one is, of course, that idle position. And then the next one, I'm just looking for like big movements, big changes in the movement. And so like here, the next key pose would be here where her arms begin to come out. And then moving on, the next key pose is going to be probably when the arms cross here. So I'm just making a note of this keyframe. And then I'll go through and block out my character at that pose with those, with that pose at that keyframe. The next one for here is when she steps out with her foot and her arms begin to come out. So I'll make a note of that keyframe. And then it seems like I kind of hold that pose for a few frames. And so or actually the arms come out. So here's the extreme pose, right? And then it holds for like a few frames. So I'll make a note of that keyframe there. And then it goes back to idle at the very end. So now, real quick, I already have a basic block out of my animation. If I frame through this keyframe, you can see that these are the key poses for the animation at the exact timing that I need. And so within like 2-3 minutes, I already have my basic blocking and timing down, just in reference form. And then from here, I'll go through and actually block out my character, matching each of the poses at that timing. And so I'm able to get my blocking pass done really fast, sometimes within just a few hours. It just takes a lot of the guessing out of it. And so once I block it out, then the fun part begins where you want to just forget about your video reference at this point and just look at your animation and sort of see where you can push the animation. And you want to always try to push your animation past the reference. And it could be things from like exaggerating a pose, varying your poses, offsetting your keyframes, sort of favoring one pose to the next, making things snappier at certain points. So if you look at my animation compared to my video reference, you can see sort of where I push things either forward or even push things back. Like here, I made the arms not go out as far because the animation was so fast, it was kind of poppy. And then in this anticipation pose, I've really leaned her body back much more than what was in my reference, just really exaggerating that pose. And I favor that pose as she goes forward. I just try to hang on to that exaggeration pose as long as possible. And then she pops forward way faster than what's in my reference, just so that the animation has a stronger feel to it. And same with here's the end pose. I really exaggerate this pose, have a nice line of action, leaner forward more, but I pulled the arms not as far back because it was too extreme in my reference, and it made the animation a little poppy. And then I also favored that pose a bit before I return her back to idle.
Hey, Billy.
Yeah.
This is a video, right? A
Yeah.
video that you've already made? Okay.
Yeah.
Everyone,
It's done. Yeah.
be sure to follow Billy on Twitter. He'll share this video. We'll also maybe link it somewhere in the chat or something. My point of view as a lead of the team, this workflow is very fast. And it's very, it allows for a very rapid sort of like feedback loop that helps us find the best choice as quick as possible. So if an animator likes to work like this, I'm fine with it. I'm all for it. That's great. Sometimes it takes a little bit more work to push it. If you're kind of new to using the reference in animation, you may get kind of like stuck to it and want to only do what you see in your reference. But Billy's done a really good job of getting to the point where like he'll push the pose further if it needs to go farther than what he's doing. But as a supervisor, it's very quick to see stuff and be like, yeah, do that, or no, don't do that. But at the same time, I think a lot of the other members on the team will just take the 3D rig and just start playing. Like just moving it around like an action figure, like finding poses, trying to push it as far as we can, block out, the timing that we feel fits for what we're doing. So the thing I want everyone to leave with is that there's no right or wrong way to do it. If the reference works for you and you can create great animation like Billy does, go for it, do it, use it. If you kind of struggle with reference or it kind of hurts your process, I kind of fall into that camp. That's totally fine too. As long as you end up with like great animation at the end, not a big deal.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's always been fun about posing in the beginning without any preconceived stuff is that a lot of times the character itself helps you find the appeal of that character. You're posing something out and you'll get happy accidents, or you'll get angles that work better with that character, and that can really, if you're in tune with that, a lot of times it can help guide you. So
yeah.
You kids stay in school.
Stay in school.
I don't know what that means.
Okay, so we're almost out of time. We have some special little outtakes and goof dailies and stuff, right? Do we have some?
Yeah.
All right.
Do.
Which one do we want to start with, and who's going to do it? Are they in the Google Drive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. I can do it if you guys want.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
All right.
This is great. This is a much asked question.
Let's start. Hey, Lorenzo, can we start with your hunk?
Yeah,
your hunk Sova?
Sova's character select.
All right.
Make sure your sound's back on.
All right. Lorenzo did an awesome animation for Sova's character select, and he decided to just do a little variance on it. Here it is.
Yeah.
Alyssa, now's the time.
So yeah, Silva's just such a hunk, good-looking dude that we just had to go there. Popular request earlier, just so we get that out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just for Sweetie Buns, I think.
Let's
That was only.
let's keep
Just
the
for
dancing
you.
going.
Oh, what's this from?
This is
It
another.
was another
rig test.
Jeremy.
Oh yeah.
Original.
I
Yeah.
never saw this one.
I like how their heads don't move. I like how it's like it's like they're chickens or something.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's the mocap.
Yeah.
Alyssa, did you find any of those images when we were working on the faces?
I couldn't get it because if they're on my long story, but no.
Okay.
Alyssa,
We'll
drop
find
that-
them.
drop
We'll
that
tweet them
picture in
out.
here.
Oh, here's a cool Paul 2D roughing out character
yeah,
select idea.
I was sitting around with my Wacom tablet trying to figure out what the hell Breach was going to do for a CS. So yeah, I just did a few pictures.
Yeah, this is a great example too of like Paul showed us this before he started blocking in 3D, and we were already able to kind of like see what he was going for. So we could already say like yes or no or faster or what about this? What about, and so the conversation could already get started. So any workflow you have that works and can communicate your idea to the team, that's the way to go.
Yeah, and that was like 10 minutes, and then you figure out what you want to do. So yeah.
Do you want to show anything in here, Paul?
Show Alyssa's screen real quick, just so everybody can get a full screen taste of that.
Let's see. There's some going on. Saying Breach. The second one on the top there, beside that, that's an early. We're trying to figure out what Breach can do with his arms, and this was a real ridiculous idea of just slamming into the ground.
Yeah.
But
you make it bigger, Billy?
Yeah, Lana just gotta.
We had no idea what this guy's arms were going to do. So they wanted to do a ground pound, and it was like, I don't know. Okay, let's try this. So again, it's just a few frames, and I mean, it helps get across what we shouldn't do. So yeah.
Nice, Paul.
Paul Monbriquette.
So Lana, how much time do we have left? Just
You
a couple
have
minutes.
like 2 minutes left.
Oh boy.
Any other questions? Last minute questions. Maybe if is there a question for Sarah? I don't think Sarah's gotten to answer anything. Should we make one up?
Sarah, right?
Oh, Sarah, who's your favorite agent to play?
Yeah.
To play?
Yeah.
Well,
Come on,
it
Sarah.
was Sage, but my poor girl has been nerfed into the ground, and I'm
Same.
playing Spooky Boy, Omen.
Oh, wrong answer. Come on.
Wait, sorry, Adam.
Boo.
I saw someone just asked like, oh, do you guys hire fresh grads? It's gonna probably be pretty rare if we hire someone straight out of school. I would recommend for any large AAA studio, look into their internship programs. That will get you, exposure and a foot in the door to just kind of like meet us all and work with us, so that then you can kind of make an impression and we can see how you are in a production environment. But otherwise, just keep working on your animation skills and your tech art skills, and keep applying. If you are a fresh grad, please apply. There's nothing wrong with it. Even if you think like you don't meet all the requirements, like go ahead and do it if you see an opening.
And just one little additional comment. Keep applying, but keep applying with new stuff. Because if you apply year over year with the same reel that you didn't get the job the first time, there's a chance that people will notice that it's the same one. But if you apply with a different reel, people are going to see growth from you, and that is very informative as a part of who you are and how you're able to adapt as well. So definitely keep applying, but also keep practicing, dog. But Valorant.
That's our time.
Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you, chat. Can we please get rats in the chat? That's just capital RATS. We don't have emojis here. This is our first stream. Thank you, Valorant. Something I forgot to put up at the beginning, but we do have contact info for most of it, if not everybody who's going to be participating in the stream, just on Twitter there. And stick around. Up next, we've got a top-down look at animation in League of Legends.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Lana.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.